Have you ever seen a line snaking around the block for a new phone or maybe a pair of sneakers, and you just thought, why? Why are some brands so desirable that people will literally wait hours, sometimes days for them? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not magic. And in this explainer, we're going to break down the exact science and the strategy behind creating a brand that people actually line up for. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to unpack this core problem, what I'm calling the lineup problem. Then we'll get into a really powerful framework from Google for building trust. After that, we'll look at the oversubscribe strategy to create massive demand. Understand the psychological triggers that make all of this tick, and then we'll wrap it all up with a practical playbook you can actually use, even if you're on a shoestring budget. All right, let's get right into it. The central tension here. In a world with just endless choices, how do you become the one thing that everybody wants? It's really the art of being wanted. I mean, this is the question, right? It keeps business owners and marketers up at night. And it's not just about having a great product. Think about this. Rolex hasn't really changed its watches in 50 years, yet they have an 18-month waiting list. So what is their secret? It's not some kind of magic formula. It's a very deliberate strategy, and it's built on a really deep understanding of human psychology.
And that brings us to this fascinating framework that a lot of these successful brands use, whether they realize it or not. It's called Google's 7-11-4 rule. And you can think of it as the invisible architecture for how we build trust with a brand long before we ever even think about buying.
So the first number is 7. 7 hours. According to research, this is the total amount of time a potential customer needs to spend interacting with your brand to go from being a complete stranger to someone who actually feels a connection. Now, this isn't one 7-hour marathon, of course. It's built up over time, through videos, articles, podcasts, you name it.
Okay, next up we have 11 touch points. Now, a touch point is just any interaction. It could be a social media post, a product demo, an email. Google found that on average, a customer has about 11 of these different interactions before they make a purchase. It's kind of like a slow dance, where every single step just brings you a little bit closer to that final decision.
And the final number is 4. 4 different locations. You see, seeing a brand on Instagram, then seeing them on their website, then in an email, and then maybe on YouTube, that creates this incredibly powerful sense of connection. Our brains don't really distinguish between digital and real-life familiarity. So if we see you in 4 different places, you just become a familiar, trusted presence in our lives. So here's the crucial point, right? The 7-11-4 rule is basically the blueprint for building the trust and familiarity you need for a sale. It's a journey that you guide your customers on, creating these meaningful interactions that make them feel like they know you, they like you, and they trust you, long before they ever pull out their credit card. Now that we get how to build trust, let's talk about how to turn that trust into overwhelming demand. Because the goal isn't just to get a sale, it's to become oversubscribed. And that's a really powerful concept from an author named Daniel Priestley. Being oversubscribed is actually pretty simple economics. It's just more demand than supply. You know, think of the one and only ice cream truck in a crowded park on a scorching hot day. They are definitely not running any discounts. That imbalance between what they have and what everybody wants, that is what sets their price and drives their profit.
And this illustrates the difference perfectly. Just think about airlines. They take on massive risk and huge capital, but they operate on these razor-thin profit margins because there's always an empty seat they need to fill. They are chronically undersubscribed. And then you have Rolex. They purposely constrain their supply, they create a waiting list, and they enjoy massive profitability. By creating an official capacity and making that scarcity visible, they generate immense desirability.
So how do brands like Rolex actually pull this off? I mean, it's not just about limiting how many they make. They are absolute masters of psychological triggers that tap into our subconscious decision-making.
Do you remember that movie Focus? Will Smith's character primes this high-stakes gambler to pick a specific number by planting it absolutely everywhere he looks. So by the time the man chooses the number, the choice had already been made for him. Well, the 7-11-4 rule works in the exact same way. Those little touch points are subtle cues that build familiarity and prime your customers to say yes.
See, people buy when 3 conditions are met: logic, emotion, and urgency. And Rolex just nails all 3. The logic? It's an investment that holds its value. The emotion? It's a symbol of my success. And the urgency? Well, that's that 18-month waiting list. When you can hit all 3 of those triggers, people don't just buy, they line up.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great for giant brands like Rolex or Apple, but how does a small business create this kind of buzz without a billion-dollar budget? Well, the answer is something called guerrilla marketing.
Guerrilla marketing is the art of the unexpected. It's all about using scrappy, creative tactics to get noticed in a world that is just full of noise. It's about sneaking your brand into people's daily lives and making them smile. And you know what? One of the most effective tools for this is the Humble Sticker.
Stickers are perfect for this. I mean, you can put them on community bulletin boards, you can give them away at local events so people stick them on their laptops and water bottles, or you could partner with a local coffee shop to put them on their to-go cups. Every single one of those stickers becomes a walking billboard, a potential touchpoint for your brand.
A really brilliant example of this is when Folgers put these giant stickers over manholes in New York City. The steam that was already rising from the sewer grates made it look like a fresh, hot cup of coffee. It was so simple, it was cheap, and it was totally unforgettable. People stopped, they took pictures, and they talked about it.
And here it is. Here's the aha moment. What was Folgers really doing? They were creating thousands of touch points across hundreds of different locations. Every single person who saw that manhole, every blog that wrote about it, every news story that covered it, that was another interaction, another step on that 7-Eleven Ford journey, building brand familiarity on a massive scale.
But look, for a sticker to actually work, it has to be designed for impact. You've got to keep it simple, a clean design with just a few bold words. Use vibrant colors that are consistent with your branding. The goal is to be memorable, not to write an essay about your whole company.
So, as we wrap this up, this is the question I want to leave you with. Building a brand that people line up for isn't about one big, flashy campaign. It's about 1,000 tiny, deliberate interactions. It's a journey. So, what's the very first touch point you can create to start your customer on their 7-hour journey with you?